Summersville, this is Dr. Bruce coming to you with a program on how to make maple syrup. We've been making maple syrup for the last 3 to 4 years at our farm after my good friend Timmy Spencer over in Fenwick demonstrated how to make it for our church kids program called Pathfinders, so they could earn a little badge for the uniform. Timmy did such a good job with demonstrating how to make it, and then when we tasted it, it tasted so good that I got in trouble and decided I wanted to start making it. And he helped me get set up. So today we're going to go through a step-by-step process on how to make maple syrup. All right, the first step you need to do in making maple syrup is figuring out which trees you want to get the sap from. Of course, making maple syrup, you'd want to get maple leaves, or maple trees. There's two main kind of maple trees that people tap here in West Virginia, Nicholas County. The red maple and the sugar maple. The sugar maple is the best. Actually, sugar maple is divided up into regular sugar maple and black maple, which are basically the same thing, but the black maples tend to have a little higher sugar content even than the regular sugar maples. But what you want to do is, again, find the maple trees, and these are examples of the leaves of the maple trees. This one in my left hand is the red maple, and you can tell it by its sawtooth pattern on the edge. You can see these little jaggedy edges. That's a red maple, soft maple. This is sugar maple, or hard maple. It's also good for furniture and flooring. And you can see on the edge that it's more smooth, and so that's the sugar maple. So once you've decided or you found your maple trees that you're going to tap, then you got to decide when is the best time of year to tap. And here in West Virginia, the best time, at least in Nicholas County, is been mostly February, maybe the first part of March. What you want is weather where the nights get down to around 20 degrees and the days get up and around 50, and that causes the sap to run hard. 'Cause what happens is when it freezes at night, it pushes the sap out of the tree down into the ground, and then as it warms up during the day, the vessels that carry the sap up the tree unfreeze and open up, and there's a lot of pressure, and it pushes that sap up, and the sap's running, and it's time to tap your trees. Next, we're going to look at how to tap your tree. Here's a sugar maple tree, and we're going to talk about the tapping process now. And so you found your tree. It's the right time of year to tap. You got to figure out what size tree to tap and how many taps per tree you can put in. I'm going to walk over here and show you some trees that are a little too small to tap. Here's a smaller sugar maple tree. Maybe in 5 or 10 years it'll be big enough to tap, but it's not big enough to tap now. There's kind of a rule of thumb you can use. You want a tree to at least be 10 to 12 inches in diameter to be able to put one tap in it. These don't fit that description. We're going to walk back over to these other trees that we are going to tap. You can see these two trees here and here, and they're big enough for one tap each. So if once you get to the one tap size, then there's kind of a rule that some people use called the 9-inch rule, whereas every 9 inches additional diameter you can put another tap. So in other words, if you had a 20-inch diameter tree, you could put 2 taps in that one. Then another 29 inches, you could put 3 taps, and so on. Some people are more conservative and they'll only put 2 taps even in the biggest trees. But it doesn't really hurt the tree as long as you kind of keep it within those boundaries. Next, I'm going to talk a little bit about the what you use, the equipment that you use to tap a tree with. It's interesting, some of the interesting history. it's thought that American Indians were the first ones to boil down maple sap. And as the legend goes, is that one of the young Indian boys was throwing his tomahawk during the spring season, went into a sugar tree, and out came the sap flowing out of the hole that he put in the tree. And he tasted it. It was somewhat sweet. And so they experimented with it, and what they would do is they would put it in hollow logs and throw hot rocks into it to boil it down. Made kind of a sweetish, probably fairly dirty concoction, but they would use that to flavor their pemmican. 150 years ago, a lot of times even less than that, I know some people who used to use elderberry branches they would use and carve up into spiles and drill a hole into the tree, and then tap the spile in and hang a bucket on it, and then collect the sap that way. There's metal buckets. We're gonna tap this tree and put this metal bucket on it, and you drill a 7/16 inch hole into the tree, tap the spile into the tree, and then the sap runs out. You hang your bucket on the little hook, and you'll want to put a lid on it to keep the snow and the branches and debris from getting into the bucket. A lot of times at the end of the season, the weather warms up, ants start coming out, and they tend to like the maple sap, and they'll crawl in your buckets. And you can see here, it's open, so the ants can crawl right on in. Whereas the plastic buckets, it's sealed off pretty good. There's not much room for the ants to get in there. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to actually tap these two trees and put the buckets in, and you can see that process. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and drill a hole into this tree and put the tap in. Couple things. Where do you want to put your hole? What side of the tree? Actually, the south part of the tree is the best. Anywhere from southeast to southwest, you tend to get your better flows up the tree on that side. It tends to stay warmer on there, and the sap runs better. And you want to drill your hole slightly upward and about 2.5 inches into the tree. And so we'll go ahead and drill this hole now. Okay, so we've drilled our hole. Now we're going to go ahead and put the spile in. Just put it into the hole, and then use a hammer, whatever you got, a little rock, tap it in to where it's snug. You don't have to put it in too hard, just so it won't pull out. All right, taps in, and now we're going to go ahead and hang the bucket. And then put your lid on. Now, we just finished having a good run. It's been above freezing for several days, so the sap's not running today, but it will probably after the next freeze. So there's the metal bucket. Now we're going to go ahead and tap this other tree and put the plastic one in. That's why they call it hard maple. Okay, so you just take your plastic tap that you've got connected to your tubing, and just put it in your hole, kind of tap it in there. You can use a hammer, your hand, a rock, whatever, and then you put this into the hole you drilled in your bucket. And put your lid on top to keep the critters out. And usually I'll put a rock on top of that, keep the bucket on. Let me get a rock here. Get a rock. And that'll keep the lid from blowing off. And you've done tapping 2 trees. All right, so we're going over now to a neighbor of mine's, Jack Chapman's farm. He's got a nice stand of maple trees, and we use a different collecting system here. We use a main line, a 1/2-inch main line, and then lateral lines going out from the main line to the different trees. And then the main line hooks into a tank, and the tank collects all the sap. Richard Harlow, who I think goes to church with Jack Chapman, and is a partner with me in making our maple syrup. In fact, our syrup we call Richard and Bruce's Pure West Virginia Maple Syrup. And so we're going to go over there and see if we've got anything in the tank. This run is slowing down now, basically about stopped, because we've had a few days of warm weather in a row without freezing, and so the sap is staying up in the tree and it's not running. So I don't anticipate too much in the tank. We'll probably just take a look at it. I'm not planning on collecting it right now. So we'll be there in a few minutes. All right, so we're at Jack's stand of maple trees. A lot of these trees are maple trees. And one of the things, when you've got a huge stand of them like this, you want to kind of pick and choose which trees you're going to tap. You can see here's a maple tree here, but it's all diseased and bad wood and doesn't have a big crown, so it wouldn't produce that much sap, so I wouldn't even tap this tree. You can also see over through the woods through there now, you can see this blue line going through the woods. That's our lines that we put in. We're going to go down to where the tank is, and I'll kind of get a peek there and get an idea of what we're doing. Okay, we're over at the place that we're using the lines to collect the sap. You can see we have a dark blue main line, got several of them actually, and we use high tensile wire to keep it taut. And then we have lateral lines, this lighter line that feeds into the main line, and then we tap into the trees. And again, you know, some trees are 2 tap, some trees are 3 tap trees. And this, with gravity, we've got a nice hillside, so we can use gravity for it to just go down into the tank. Some big producers that don't have the hillsides have to use pumps to pump it. One of the problems that you have during the off season is squirrels like to chew on this line. We found that bleach, they like bleach. When you flush them out with bleach to sterilize them, they tend to like to chew on them more. And pool cleaner, which is, I think it's calcium chloride, they don't like as much. And we used that this last year and didn't get as much chewing damage on our lines. So this is just another method, and the bigger producers tend to use this, mainly don't use the buckets. So now you've seen our tapping process. The next process is collecting the sap into our containers, and we'll be taking a look at that in a little bit. Okay, here's our container that we collect the sap in from our lines. It's about a 250-gallon tank, and yesterday we collected this one full and pumped it into another tank in the back of a pickup truck and brought it back to our house and started boiling it. So the collection process, you know, when it runs, you collect it in your buckets or your tanks, and then get it over to your pan to start boiling it. Now our next process next step we're gonna look at is actually boiling it and taking it out of the pan. So we'll go look at that now. Doing here shortly is taking the syrup out of the pan. We've been cooking the sap down. It's getting close to syrup, and so we'll be taking it out here shortly. Process: we use a hand crank and crank up the back end of the pan up, and slide these metal roofing sheets over the fire, and then collect the sap with a cooking pan and put it through a filter over here into these pans where we're going to finish it. And so we'll be doing that here in just shortly. We'll be going step by step doing that.
Close as far as you can get it.
You don't want this.
I don't want them on there. I was just trying to get these straightened out.
Okay. Okay. Start. Going through is pretty slow.
They just have to put single in there. Like I say, I have to get pretty close.
Yeah, we're pouring it through our filter system. It's kind of going a little bit slow. We have to filter out. A lot of times what you'll get is sand, sediment, and and we want to get that out of our syrup. Filters, you can use plain flannel. That's what we're using here. Works pretty good. You can also use filter paper that you can buy. But we'll be filtering this twice. Once here and then once when we finish it. I'm gonna put the flannel around this tank, this pot, and use it as a filter. If this thing will go around, I'm not sure. It's gonna stretch all the way around. There we go. Try to get two pans going at the same time. I'm just going to use a single one on there.
You got a single one?
Yeah, I just got a single one on this one.
Don't grab too much at one time.
Yeah. If I can just scoop some of that. So sometimes it'll filter fast and sometimes it'll filter slow.
Well, like I said, we've got a lot more
concentrated too. It's closer to syrup too, which is a good thing, but it's just going to take us longer to filter it. But we'll get there.
Trying to figure out some better way to do this. We lose so much on our filtering process.
Yeah. Okay. Richard here is filtering the syrup. First time when we take it off the pan, we filter it once through one or two layers of flannel, and to get sediment, sugar sand out of there, and then we'll store it for the night, and then finish it tomorrow. We'll heat it up, get it to right where it needs to be for syrup, and do the final filtering process. You can see it takes a while sometimes for it to go through the filter cloth. It depends on how much sugar sand there is, and that depends on the run. Some runs there's a lot, and some runs there's not so much. We've boiled a lot down here, probably over 400 gallons of sap, and so this is pretty close to syrup, and so there's more sediment than if we don't boil it down as far or as close to syrup. By the way, this is Richard Harlow, my neighbor and partner in crime here, and we've been doing it together for several years now, and we're still doing it. Okay, that's about it for today. We're just about done with this filtering process. We'll store it in these containers overnight, clean out the pan, and store it up, and come back probably tomorrow and finish the syrup and bottle it up. Richard's finishing up getting this last little bit filtered, and we'll call it a day.